So we've spoken about some of the underlying parameters. And I've said a few things about what Jujitsu is not. Okay, so Jujitsu, okay, is not unarmed. Right, that's the main one. No, that's the key one. I've spoken about all sorts of parameters. We said that's not esoteric. Okay, it's concrete, that we should be able to give examples. Okay, but what does it really mean? Both theoretically and practically. So, in our school, this is one of the underlying theories, the model of strategy, the two methods of strategy, it's called. And in my mind, it's a good way of looking at Jiu-Jitsu across the board, but yes, it applies directly to what we practice, but it's probably not a bad way to think about Jiu-Jitsu in general. So, okay. So I'm going to say up here, Ju. Alright? Now, Jitsu is pretty much, we can understand what that means. Jitsu, right? Art, skill. Not really a lot of thought needs to go around that. Or at least it's another whiteboard session for much later. We've got to get this part right first. Okay. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say, go. So, Goju karate. Right. Hard, soft, karate. Ju, go. What do we mean? Okay. So that's the basic everyone says, isn't it? Soft. Yeah. Hard. Okay. What else have we got? You know, you could say yang, where this is yin. Bit esoteric. Not if we understand what we're talking about, but if I just go, looks like yin and yang, it's not an answer that we've got anywhere. Okay? Hard, soft. And with that, you could say yang, male, hot, dry, right, yin, female, cold, wet, fine. So, in our school, we represent these. These are the key concepts. Alright? This is the, let's put the asterisk on this one. Orthodox. Right. For lack of a better term, unorthodox. Okay. That feels a little bit more concrete. Notice that where have weapons gone? We haven't said armed, unarmed. That's not the concept. Although it may fit somewhere. We'll build on this list shortly. We represent this with, in our school, the spear. Yep. And over here we have the dagger or the short sword. Oh, excuse me. Edit that out. He won. Alright, got my short sword here. What we are talking about here is this competition. This all warfare is asymmetric. All warfare is asymmetric. Famous quote, famous piece of strategic writing. All warfare is asymmetric. Now, when we have we're going to go down here, can everyone see that? Symmetry. We have to contrive it. Why do we contrive it? Fair competition. Fair competition. A test of skill. Test of skill, I'm going to asterisk to that. It's a specific skill. So, combat sports. We want to test a specific skill. Let's say judo. I'm going to call that standing grappling. I'm just giving it the full lean back here. Stand and grapple. Well, what we want is a fair fight. Okay, so we have weight classes, belt divisions, sex divisions, as in male and female. We do all these things to try and contrive a fair fight. However, this is still true, it's just it's a bit harder to see what side of the equation you're on. I've been doing this for 20 years. This guy's bigger than me. Right? I've been doing this for 30 years. That guy's quicker than me, younger than me. How do these things weigh up? What side of the equation am I on? Well, we're trying to compact that equation to make it fair, so we're only comparing one skill. And we're going to test and we're going to have a competition to see which skill is better. Great. Now, all warfare is asymmetric. Where does this come in? This is the orthodox method. This is the unorthodox. Why am I interested in this? Okay, well, I don't know what side of the equation I'm on, but a lot of time I'm going to be on the bad side of the equation because I'm behind. Take self-defense situations. I'm walking down the street, minding my own business with other things on my mind, unarmed. My opponent is walking down the street. He's got the intention of, he knows what's happening, so he's already in front of me, right? He picks out somebody who thinks he can handle. He's probably bigger. There's more than one of them, and there's just you, right? He makes sure he's got the freaking. It's not the game of heroes here. He makes sure that he's also got other advantages, like I'm carrying a knife as well. So what side of this equation am I on? Well, I'm on this side. Okay? There's no fair fight here. I need to start approaching it like this. I'm on the weak side. I'm on the struggle bus. He's on the orthodox. Okay. What do we mean by orthodox? As much as people want to talk about martial arts being, you know, how to use skill to overcome somebody who's bigger and stronger, right? And that's not the point of most martial arts. Most martial arts are here, right? And that's what this is about. We're getting better at this one thing. The idea is for me to be better than that other person. Okay, great. But if I want to win a judo match and there's no rules, well, I want to be bigger and stronger than him. Alright, okay. I want to come in at 265 and ripped. And he comes in at 180 pounds and freaking out of shape. That's the sort of conflict that I want. If we look at von Clausewitz, right? What is the main aim of the general? To get as big a force as you can to the right place at the right time and to just overwhelm the opponent. He doesn't try and set up, how many men has he got? Well, let's go there with an equal number of men and sort of see who's better tactically. Well, no, strategically, turn up with as many guys as you can. Hopefully put him in a real bad spot. Make it inevitable. Crush him, smash him. That's the orthodox way of doing things, right? That's why you hire big guys to stand on doors. But this is no good if I'm on this side of the equation. Okay? So we need to spend some of our time looking at when I'm on this side of the equation, and that's especially relevant to self-defense, normal people who are put into problematic situations, policing situations. I'm tethered by rules, they're not, right? Special forces, there's 10 of us and there's fucking a whole lot of regular forces, right? That's an unorthodox approach. How are we going to make that work, right? That's the Jew side. This is the Jujitsu, right? Most things here are Go-Jitsu. That's why you can have here, okay? You can have Kenjutsu here, okay? You can have Kenjutsu here. Right? Schools of Jujitsu often include Kenjutsu. Over here, they're typically called a Kenjutsu school. What's the difference? Why has this one got Kenjutsu and this one's got Kenjutsu? This one's Kenjutsu, that one's Jujitsu. Well, my approach is that I'm worse than the other person. If the guy attacks me, I can make two assumptions. I'm better than him. I'm that good, I'm better than him. Right? That opens up one set of possibilities. Or I can say, he's probably better than me if he wants to have a sword fight. Now that's going to give me two very different approaches. Over here I'm going to try and win with skill. Now, I want to set up this competition here because I'm better than him. Over here it's like, I'm going to have to do something unorthodox here. Alright. So what we would normally say here is, we've got striking. Yeah. Okay. So over here then, we've got grappling. That's the orthodox way to go about things. I'm bigger, I'm taller, I've got more reach, I've got more power. Bang. Right? I'm shorter, I'm smaller, I've got less reach. Not so good. Right? Short sword against the spear. Not so good. I've got to get through this, either stay away from him or get in close and grapple him, get a hold of him. Pull him into a different thing than an orthodox puncher. Alright. So, let's think of the spear and the short sword. Distance and timing are very, very important. And there's always an element of distance, like yin and yang. There's always an element of distance in timing. There's always an element of timing in distance. But this person's main is more interested in distance, and this person is more interested in timing. Why is that? Well, okay, let's look at our competition here between the short sword and the spear. His spear is a great advantage to him because he can stab me from, 3, 4, 5 feet away. As long as he maintains that distance. What does the short sword want to do? Well, he's got to stay outside that distance, or he's got to cross that distance, bridge through that distance to get up close. If we're at this sort of distance now, stabbing with the short sword or the dagger, very useful. Spear, not so much use at that distance. In terms of timing, he's always going to get the first attack because of that range. He's always going to get the first one. It's no good here trying to beat him to the punch if you've got a short sword and he's got a spear. He's got to get 1, 2 shots at you on the way in. You want to limit those shots. Sure, that's a tactic over here. I'm going to cross that distance quickly. I'm not going to stand there at where the waves break and just get pounded and pounded and pounded. I want to get through that breaking wave distance and be inside where the waves break or outside where the waves break. I don't want to be standing where the waves break. So I'm always going to be on the timing thing. I'm going to have to cross that thing, and at some stage they're going to get a shot at you, at least one. You're going to have to use timing. Right? There's always an element of both. There's always an element of grappling and striking. There's always an element of the orthodox and the unorthodox. Right? There's always an element of yin and yang. But the most of it is here. 80-20. So when we think about this competition, obviously we want to train in this manner as well. So a lot of training in martial arts attempts to set up symmetry. He doesn't have a knife and I don't have a knife. He has a sword, a bamboo sword, and I have a bamboo sword, and they're the same length. Right. We're always looking for asymmetry, which is, he has a knife and I don't. He's bigger than me and I'm smaller than him. I've had these constraints because I've got to not hurt him when I'm dealing with him. He doesn't care. He goes buck wild. We always have at least one element of the symmetry. We always have different jobs. Okay? Over here, people have the same job. What's my job? To throw him and get a nip on. What's his job? To throw me and get a nip on. Same job. Here, in the real world, we've got very different jobs. Right? What's his job? To bash me and feel good about life. What's my job? To not get bashed. That's two different jobs. No? I can't take this as a model of how to operate in normality. This is contrived to focus on a certain skill. Okay? Now this is one of the reasons why BJJ, one of the advantages of say BJJ is there's a forced asymmetry. For the most part. Right? For the most part, there's someone on top and there's someone underneath. And those people have, in reality, two different jobs. Stay on top, right? Get past Alright? Get out from under here. Sweep, improve the position. Stop the other person doing the opposite. So when we talk about Jujitsu, we're talking about the art of being in this situation, but still, maximising your outcome. Now, there's all sorts of things that these lead into practically, okay? Let's talk about body position. For the most part, we only use 2 body positions, okay? We're straight on, we're shizentai, or we're side on, we're harmway. We're not taking big stances, we've got natural stances, we're one of those 2 things. Now, if I'm holding the spear, right, or if I'm trying to maximise my reach, okay, then I'm harming, right? Side on. And that leads to linear movement. Back and forth, attack and retreat. I'm trying to keep that distance, attack him, keep that distance. I want to keep on that line, I want to keep him on that line. Timing. So, I'm no longer side on, I'm square. Okay? And that means lateral movement. Okay? Lateral linear movement. A lot of footwork. Asymmetry. Lateral movement. Asymmetry. Body movement. So, I'm fighting a linear fashion with the spear. Right? My footwork, I'm side on because of the spear, and because I want to maximise this range. I'm fighting against someone with a shorter weapon. I'm not going to go spear on spear. Well, right? That's a competition of orthodox versus orthodox, right? That's just not the side that we're interested in here, right? So there's a lot of back and forth retreating. I want him to keep him in that wave breaking distance. Yeah? I want to keep him in that wave breaking distance. So I can attack him and he can attack me. I don't want him getting hold of my weapon. I want to stay free. Right? He wants to get a hold of my weapon. He wants to get in. He wants to close that distance. If I'm on the other side here, lateral movement, when I cross that bridge, when I try and bridge that distance between us, and I've got to go through that strike zone, I can't just retreat back out of the way or run through it on that same line. I've got to get off that line, around that line, deflect that line. Yep. So the body has to, at some stage, often make a big movement or a big sideways movement or a change in shape to get through there. It's driven with the body. I've got to clear that line somehow. Right? This is why being static over here is no good, because if he's standing there with a spear and you're standing with a short sword and you go, okay, just keep taking shots at me. No, not going to happen, right? There's got to be movement all the time. So now we start to get into more concrete, what does this actually mean? Okay, it means this. There we're talking grappling, timing, square, lateral movement, body movement. Over here, we're talking orthodox, striking, distance, side on, linear movement, foot movement. Now, even the way that I can say deliver power is different. If I've got this overwhelming reach or distance, I've got this overwhelming strength, I'm worried about keeping the distance. So for instance, with the spear against those shorter weapons, I'm not so much attacking on that step. I don't have to, because he's got to cross that distance. Yeah? So there's no need to be landing with the spear before the front foot hits, or got to land as the front foot hits or before the front foot hits, because there's no pressure there. What I really want to be able to do is retreat. So you land with the spear against the shorter weapon, you want the front foot in place before I even throw a shot, because what I want to do is to retreat. Yep. Over here though, when you've got to go through that distance, well, as you're crossing that distance, you can't rely on retreating or the foot landing and then doing things. You sort of need to arrive with those interferences happening, because they're happening to you as you move through. So, now, in our school, we have the concept of Nito. Okay, two swords. But it doesn't mean two swords. Okay, it might be represented by two swords, but what we're talking about here is holding that in one hand and holding that in the other, and using the appropriate one at the appropriate time. So we have here the short sword and the spear. If I have a sword, yep, then if I encounter the short sword, yep, I need to go orthodox. If I encounter the spear, I need to go unorthodox. Because I have this mid-distance. This is why the sword is maintained in our tradition. Because that's neither, I don't know what side I'm on, right? We keep contriving a sword versus sword, sword versus sword, sword versus sword. It tricks you into thinking about symmetry. But we're not thinking about symmetry, we're thinking about asymmetry. When I go sword versus sword, I don't know what side I'm on. When I go pick up the sword and I face this person, well, I use orthodox tactics, right? I don't want him up on me like that, because his short swords or his dagger is an advantage. But I want to be up on like that, on the person with the spear. So, all of these tactics here, okay, if he has the short sword, these tactics are wrong for me. Yeah? And these tactics are right. If he has the spear, these tactics are right. These tactics are wrong. Now, this is an important explanation. Often you'll come across in certain arts, right, even your own art, things where you sort of say, well, this was working for me in this situation, but not another. How can it be right in one situation and wrong in another? How can these two different things be right? For instance, this person approaches it like that, seems to work for him. This person approaches it like that, seems to work for him. But they're dead set opposites. How can they both be right? Well, they can both be right because this. So what this means is it's right and wrong is contextual. Right and wrong is contextual. Depend on what? That's one of those things to say. There's another part of the sentence. Right and wrong is contextual. Based on what side of this asymmetric equation you're on. Okay? That's where we sort of get into be more specific. Right and wrong is contextual. Agree? Good work. Right and wrong is contextual based on which side of this asymmetric equation you're on. Okay, things are getting more concrete. Okay? This should now be getting more concrete than hard and soft, yin and yang. What does that mean? It means this. Okay? So this is the skill that we're trying to acquire, Nito. Now Nito doesn't require 2 swords. Right? It doesn't require a sword at all. It just means that I understand this equation and I try and choose my tactics and my strategies accordingly. Okay, so we've got asymmetry, symmetry. This is what plane we're on. This is what a lot of martial arts work in. But it's still this skill here, okay, whatever it is, this skill that we're working on, we've contrived this to work on this particular skill. It still needs to fit back into this. Alright, so over here, what this is about is, for example, winning. What this is about is not losing. That is my success over here. That's a different success than this. So I'm not fussed on winning. I don't understand the concept of winning. It doesn't really fit in to normal life interactions in our context. What we're worried about is not losing. There is no winning in some sort of, say, self-defense scenario. You're being robbed, whatever it is. There's no winning. There's no upside. There is no upside. You're going to be robbed. Sucks, right? Might be attacked with a knife and killed. No winning in that. I might defend myself and then end up in court. Sucks. Defend myself, I end up in hospital. And he ends up in hospital, court. Even though people go, oh, what, you'll get off? Don't worry, get off. I don't want to go to court in the first place. Okay? So I've got to understand what I'm doing here is I'm not losing because there's no winning for me. Right? This is all downside. So I need to set my mindset up from that. Just getting out of here unscathed, and we can go on tomorrow with normal life. That for us is success. Over here it's bouncing your head off the concrete and taking your wallet. That's success. 2 very different measures. So this is really what is Jujitsu, okay? It's being on this track. We'll clean this off. It's recorded for humankind. So Okay. Okay. Let's say we have two competing forces. Got force 1 here, force 2 here. What do I know about my force? Hopefully a lot, right? Some cases maybe not that much. What do I know about the opponent's force? That's a critical question. What do I know about the opposing force? Right? Intelligence. What intelligence do I have about the opposing force? Alright, so combat sport. What do I know about the opposing force? Okay, even if I don't know them personally, I have a lot of intelligence. Okay, I know if I'm training with them, that's one thing, I know them intimately, for lack of a better word. If I'm going to the competition, I know that they will be in a weight range, right? I know that they will be operating within the rules. I know that they will be using judo techniques, because this is a judo match, right? If they don't use those techniques, it's going to be stopped. I know what the environment is. I have a skill range that they will be in. I might even know, based on the dojo that that person trains in, some of their common tactics. You know what they're good at. This university is renowned for Uchimata. Okay, well, I know what they'll be wearing. Obviously, I know they're unarmed, etc. Right? Lots of intelligence here. Now, if I've got let's say I've got a lot of intelligence. Yeah, I can then make a decision, an assumption, that I'm stronger than the other person or I'm weaker than the other person. Set my tactics accordingly. Okay? So I can decide what side of the equation that I'm on. So if I think that, you know, and there's some sporting elements here that would say ignore this anyway, but my mission is to win, right, on this side. I know a lot about the person. If the person is better than me, then I say, well, I'm going to use these sorts of tactics. Yeah. The person is worse than me, and I'm going to use these sorts of tactics. Right. Now, let's say I'm over here, right? I know a little or nothing. Right? I may have some intelligence in terms of how common certain attacks are, and then, you know, I may be totally surprised by the attack, but I may have some indication about what's going on and who's involved. Right? I don't know that much. Okay? Now, how then do I assess what this equation is? I can't. Can't really assess it. This is why Jiu-Jitsu is important. If I can't assess it, yeah, what's my default? Well, let's say he's better than me. If I take the Jew approach, right, that was the right thing to do. If I take the go approach, that's dead wrong. Right? That's what he was hoping for. Okay? If he's worse than me, yep, if I take the go approach, I'm fine. If I take the Jew approach, my goal here isn't to win, it's to not lose. I'm fine. So, in both of these situations, I can get by with the Jew approach, the unorthodox approach, the softer approach, the I'm just here not to lose approach. They're both okay. If he's worse than me and I take that unorthodox approach is fine. It's easier. Now, which one of these would we assume in, say, a self-defense situation we're on? I'm going to assume I'm worse off than the person who's attacking me. Okay? I'm going to assume. Okay. So there's 2 votes for this style of approach. Basically, if I choose this approach, it'll hold up in both of these sides of the equation, and because my aim is to not lose, and it's the only way to handle the fact that he's better than me. And my assumption is that when you're on the shit end of the stick, right, the assumption is he's better than me. I'm going to assume I'm on the shit end of the stick. So that's the right approach. Now over here, if he's better than me and I take the dual approach, right, we've got the same setup here. In this case though, he's worse than me and I take the go approach, that leaves me susceptible right? This is what the United States Army keeps finding out. This leaves me susceptible to this unorthodox approach. Okay, so wait a minute. I'm harder than thou. Good. I've got a lot of intelligence on my enemy. They're worse than I am. We've got more bullets, more guns, more trained guys. Perfect. More technology, more equipment. We got it all. Perfect. I want to go in hard. Well, I would suggest that the US military was a far superior military force to the North Vietnamese. However, they're susceptible to these unorthodox tactics. They needed to adjust. And they've encountered similar problems. They've done a better job in various Middle Eastern areas, but you know, warfare is just an extension of policy. They've been brought undone with policy. Again, they've been beaten by this approach. They can't beat us in the field, but they've just outlasted us. It's waited for us to go, and then sprung back up, right? Wait for them to go, and then get on with your life. So in life, right, not contrived pieces of sport, in life, often I want this to fall. Now, if I hear I've got some good skills, right, that will help me here, right, and that'll help me here. Sometimes this approach might get me over the hump, yep, and then I'd had to survive, and then I could implement what I was good at, right? But I needed to survive. Oh shit, he's really good at punching. Glad I didn't just try and punch on here, right? Now we can pull him into my world because I'm great at fill in the dots. I'm great at grappling. I pulled him into my world. Using the right one at the right time. Neato. Yep. Had to block that one first before I could stab him. So this is really what Jujitsu is about and why it's always going to be useful. Why it's always going to be useful. So Jujitsu now, you know, I love all different martial arts, okay? I love Kendo, right? It's a great thing. Ju-Kendo, really like Ju-Kendo. BJJ, I love it, right? We're just trying to understand our contexts. Let's put that out there first. Well, I just use these terms interchangeably because I'm a wild man. Jiu-Jitsu here, and let's look at Kendo, right? Just for Kendo. Okay, now Kendo, right, has a solid shape. Now if you do Kendo in Hobart, right, and you travel to Stockholm, right, and then you go to Kyoto, right, Kendo will be virtually the same. You'll know what it is. The instructor might have things that he concentrates on, things that he doesn't concentrate on. Sometimes there might be little bits of training differences, blah, 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 blah. But you'll turn up, you'll be able to fit in. It's one of the attractions of these things. I'll be able to fit in wherever I go. I can do Kendo wherever I go. Kendo has a fixed shape, and people or the society even, they've been to Kendo. there's something in your religion that says you can't do kendo, you don't adopt kendo, you just don't do kendo. Because kendo is kendo. Yep. It doesn't matter what you think of ultranationalist Japan, how Buddha was used for their devices. Let's keep that very broad, okay? If you want to do kendo, then you do kendo, right? It's kendo. That's one of the pluses about it. You can travel around, you can do kendo. If you're living in one country, it's very popular in universities. You live in one country and you move because you're an academic or you're studying or something like that. You go to the university kendo club. Hey, he might be good at this or he might be good at that, but you'll fit right in, easy. BJJ is the same, right? Different clubs might concentrate on different things, but if you do BJJ and you move countries, you can go to the local BJJ club, fit right in. Judo, fit right in, right? Various styles of karate, if you can find it on the street corner, you can fit. Okay. Jujitsu, right? It's like water, right? It fits the shape of the container it is in, okay? Because it has to be practical. Now, I'm going to say, not Koryu, because nowadays, because of this sort of line in the sand that's drawn, even though headmasters of Koryu schools still focus on different things and they make changes, or they might stop doing this or start doing that, right? Right? It's still more, we're retaining that shape for cultural purposes. This is now, it's like a living link to the past. How far that past goes back and how it's exactly the same it is in the past. Another whiteboard session and we can talk about it all day. Do you think it's like it was in 1605? Let's say probably not, but since 1868, it's pretty similar. Okay. Because it has to be practical. Now, if you go from place to place, it's obviously therefore different because of context. Alright, if you go from the same place but time to time, it's different because of context. The container, the shape of the container is changing. It should be. In terms of this, if it stops, it dies. Okay? There's plenty of martial arts for cultural practice. If you want to do something for cultural practice, right? Tradition is not a good word to use in this sense because it gives an indication that not changing is traditional. I don't know what traditional means even nowadays in martial arts. I don't understand it. We're going to need a whole whiteboard session for that. If it stops, it dies. Why? Because it stops fitting the container. If this no longer fits the container, it's no longer, it's not relevant. Yeah. It's not relevant, then you may as well go, we've got, if it's not relevant, we've got lots of options. We've got lots of options. We're doing something. If we're not worried about it being relevant. And these are often, skills, sports, combat sports. There's more of them. Travel around, lots of teachers. Do Kyoryu, do Budo, right? Budo, put in martial arts. Martial arts for martial arts' sake. What makes you want to go down to the local Jujitsu club if it doesn't tick any boxes? You sort of go, well, if you stop Jujitsu being relevant, there's a branch of Jujitsu, which I would argue is a branch of Jujitsu, right, called combatives. Krav Maga. You may as well go and do that. That's why people used to do Jiu-Jitsu, or start it. Now, you might say to me, okay then, why do I still maintain various traditions, why do I still maintain various aspects within the school? The sword, for instance, how is the sword relevant? These things are used to illustrate principles. They're also, if someone's trying to hit you with something sharp, the weapon has parameters, right? So understanding that Jiu-Jitsu, Go-Jitsu, that short sword spear thing. The weapon has parameters, and how it matches up against other parameters is what you're exploring there. But you're still going to set your found. You're not going to start. You don't start doing sword on day one. Or you don't start doing useless rubbish on day one, or stuff that isn't. There's no point to on day one. You start doing something that's relevant to people on day one. Now, one of the problems with combatives. Well, I don't want to say problems. One of the features of combatives, right, that it's finite. That's the idea of it. It's supposed to be finite. Got to train a lot of people real quick to be in, the Second World War combatives, because they got to go off and actually fight soon. So, TikTok. There's a whole bunch of training you got to do with police recruits. How much of that you got to train doing, practical martial arts? Not a lot, right? Like once a week for 8 weeks, for an hour between running and more book work. That's it. That's your lot. Okay, it's finite and it's designed to be that way. And because it's finite, you're going to teach people the things that they most need, the things that they can most get to grips with easily. A few things that you can do a lot with. Right? A hammer, a screwdriver, an adjustable wrench. That's your toolkit. Go. Now, doesn't do every job, but it does a lot. This is great, right? This is a great base to start with. Then we go, but what we want to keep doing. I want to keep living the warrior lifestyle. I have to keep inventing content. Well, we already have that content. For those people who want to move on to more in-depth look at martial arts, a more holistic approach, okay, we have the content for that. But we still want to build our base on in contexts that are relevant, things that fit the container. It's always got to be practical. Even if we're doing sword work, it's got to be practical. There can't be any sort of can't be ridiculous. The attacks that that person, just like the rest of the Jiu-Jitsu, the attacks that the person executes have to be useful attacks, they have to be worthwhile attacks, they have to be well done, and the defences have to be, sensical, useful. And then you'll learn about, the footwork, the body movement, everything else is all the same. It's just, okay, now I have this parameter of whatever it is in my hand. What difference does that make? How do I show everything else that I know in this thing? Plenty of reasons to keep doing it, but you're not going to open with sword work. You're going to save that for later on. You're not going to suddenly become a sword school and focus on that. You're going to look at the sword from the perspective of that Jew side. The sword against the spear. The short sword against the spear. The sword against the short sword. We're really going to come to grips with the essence of Jiu-Jitsu through those mediums, because it really focuses down, it really narrows the spectrum down about what it is that I'm looking at, what it is that I'm doing, what's superfluous, what's efficient, all that kind of stuff. That's why those things still exist, right? Doesn't mean that I completely chuck out everything that I know and start again every 5 years because it's no longer relevant. What it does mean is I need to continually revise it and improve as we learn more and we bring in more skills and all that type of stuff. And the container that we live in changes, we need to adjust for it. But we need to do it, as we were talking about the other day, we need to do it in a scientific manner, a rigorous manner. So I hope that gives a good base level understanding of what we mean when most people just say, we have the principle of Ju. What does that mean? And what does Jiu-Jitsu mean? Well, that's what I've tried to cover today for a baseline. Let's get at the underpinning. What is the underpinning of this architecture? It tells us what this principle means and how is it applied in a concrete fashion. All right, good.